I'm Catherine Connor. I went to law school at Bolt Hall, and I graduated in 1982. And while I was in law school, I became really clear that I didn't want to work in a big firm or do the sorts of things that many of the Bolt Hall students wanted to do, and I wanted to be out of a larger area. So I started looking north from San Francisco and found Sonoma County, which is a more rural environment, smaller population, and moved up here with one of my law school buddies where we started our own law practice. Sort of the blind leading the blind, since we didn't know how to do simple things like how do you file a paper, but we learned how to do that, and we were actually quite fortunate because when we were looking, we discovered that my partner knew someone who had been running a legal clinic a couple of days a week in Petaluma and was ready to pass it on to someone after 3 years. So we started our practice by going there for a couple of days a week, which was perfect because it was people with relatively simple problems, which was really good because that was about all we could handle. And so we started doing that and built up our practice, and I discovered after just maybe a couple of years that I really enjoyed doing family law more than anything else. So I, over probably another year or two, stopped doing anything but family law. And shortly after that, I became interested and heard about and became interested in mediation. So I took a mediation training with Gary Friedman back when he was just starting to do training, and started doing a little bit of mediation, but primarily I was a litigator. And I did litigation for probably 15 years or so, with maybe a case here or there of mediation. But mostly just, someone has a problem, we're going to get it taken care of, and off to court and, take care of their burning issues and get victory and get that adrenaline rush when things went well. And it took me a while to really start to become more cognizant of the damage that was occurring on the non-economic level, particularly for my clients and for their families. And as I became more aware of that, I was starting to look more for alternatives. I started doing a lot more mediation. In fact, I went around telling everyone I know, well, I'm a mediator, and everyone, oh, I didn't know you were a mediator, and I started immediately getting a lot more mediation clients. And so as I was ramping up my mediation, I think it maybe been 2 or 3 years before when I'd been putting some energy into that, I heard about collaborative. And I actually don't even remember where I heard about collaborative. But I thought it was a great idea. And a group of, I think, about 5 or 6 of us did a training, and I think it actually may have been one of the very first trainings with Peggy Thompson and Rod Nurse. And they came up to Sonoma County, and we did a pretty small training with them. There were 5 or 6 of us from Sonoma County, but some people from other area. And we decided we wanted to start it here. So, and because of how our county works, and we're a fairly collegial family law bar, we decided we didn't want to have a closed group. We wanted to have an open group. And we wanted to somehow attach it to our local bar association because we felt that would legitimize the use of collaborative in our area. So we started a section of our local bar association. And I volunteered to be the first chair of that section with a co-chair with someone else. So we started that up, and we thought, well, maybe there'll be 15 or 20 other people that might be interested. And we put an invitation out to the entire bar, come if you're interested. And we were quite surprised when about 45 or 50 people showed up to our, hey, this is what collaborative is about. Including people who were not family attorneys, but other areas of law who thought it might apply to them. And so we were thrilled to have that amount of interest. Just for background information, our legal community, we probably have about, thinking back then, we probably had about 1,000 attorneys, or somewhat more than that now. And our population of our entire county, back then it was probably about 400,000. In Santa Rosa, which is the county seat, it was probably about 100,000. Now we're quite a bit larger than that now. Santa Rosa has about 150, but we're still a fairly small community. And our family law bar, back then when we started, probably had 100 lawyers. So when we had put out this invitation and we had 50 lawyers show up, of which probably 40 or 45 were family lawyers, that was a very significant percentage of our family law bar who was interested in this alternative. So we invited Stu Webb out to come because we thought, well, we'll ask him. He knows what it's all about, since we really didn't have much of a clue. So we invited Stu, came out, and he was wonderful, and he got a lot of enthusiasm because he has such an inviting and enticing way of speaking about collaborative. And so that got more enthusiasm. So then we started meeting monthly, and we alternated between a business meeting and then some type of discussion on a topic. And we were trying to learn about collaborative, since most of us didn't know anything, and we also started trying to put some trainings together. So we invited Chip Rose to come, and he did a number of trainings with us. And then we started to get mired down in advertising. And how can we get the word out? How can we let our community know about collaborative? And we did arrange to do some speaking engagements at local Rotary clubs, but we weren't having a lot of success in really getting the word out, and people were getting somewhat frustrated because there weren't a lot of cases happening. And there was also this idea that, well, why don't we put an ad in the local newspaper, and that will get us some clients. And part of the problem was we were doing all our business in the group together. So we had probably 30 or 35 people that would regularly come to our lunch meetings initially, and then it sort of dwindled down as the business portion of it got to overtake the interesting collaborative portion of it. And so I remember this one time we spent 6 months talking about what the ad was going to look like that we put in the newspaper in the entire group. So that was pretty deadly. Not a good idea for doing that in your collaborative group. And then at the same time, well, actually, maybe 2 or 3 years into this, a group of, or several, not a group, 2 or 3 mental health professionals came to one of our meetings and said, we'd like to start up an interdisciplinary group. And if there's anybody that's interested, we're going to have this meeting and come and meet with us. And so I and a number of other lawyers started meeting with the mental health professionals, and we invited a couple of financial people in. So we started a separate group that was an interdisciplinary collaborative group. And we started that out as an open group where anybody could come, but after several months we decided to close it for a while, primarily because we were trying to figure out how to do this, and we wanted to have the same group of people be trying to figure this out rather than having an in and out membership. So in some ways it was more of a study group than a practice group, although we were hoping to get cases, but we were really just trying to figure out how to do interdisciplinary work. So we spent, actually, I think it was about a year going through a case from beginning to end, just figuring out, okay, this step what would we do, the next step. The lawyers taught the mental health and financial about the legal steps. The financial introduced some of their tools to the lawyers and mental health. The mental health talked about some of the work they do. We all took the BASC test, which is a personality inventory, and we talked about what came out of it so we can understand what the clients might be doing. So it was really an educational process for us. At the same time, we were trying to go out and spread the word by doing some presentations. So after maybe a couple of years with both of these groups being in existence, the bar group was starting to have problems with the local bar association because the bar wasn't sure that it was okay for us to be advertising, whether that would compromise their nonprofit status, and some of the other members of the bar weren't so happy that there was this advertising, and so there was some rumbling happening there. The interdisciplinary group was having some difficulties finding clients because it was such a small group. If one person had a client that was represented by someone in the group, often the client's spouse was finding someone outside of the interdisciplinary group. So there was some momentum to expand that group.